In this video, we will show you how to replace your coolant reservoir on this GMC Acadia. This will be located along the driver's side of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we're going to mention, hand and eye protection at all times. After that, make your way over to the coolant cap. We're making sure everything's cool to the touch before you open up your cooling system. Assuming it is cool to the touch, go ahead and remove that coolant cap. We'll lift it up and away from our face, a quick inspection, and we'll set that aside. Continuing from there, it's time to start removing as much of the coolant from inside of the reservoir as possible. There's a couple different ways you could do it. One would be using an extractor of some sort, and we'll remove as much of the fluid as possible before we start removing any hoses. Other than that, you could remove a hose, but make sure you have a collection receptacle underneath there so we can collect the fluid properly. We'll make sure we recycle this as we continue. At this point, I've removed as much of the fluid as possible. Let's continue on down along the side, just underneath where the master cylinder is. We're going to remove that hose. Make sure you have something underneath there, like I said before, to collect that fluid properly. We can see the hose that we're going to dislodge right under here. It's held in place with a clamp. We'll just squeeze on that clamp. Get this right down in here. As you pull this off, it's very common to still have coolant in the system. You need to have a collection receptacle underneath this area. There we are. Slide that clamp down the hose. A quick inspection of the clamp. If it looks like it's rotted and damaged, you definitely want to make sure you replace that. This one's still in great condition. Now, as we slide the hose off of here, there's still the probability there's going to be coolant inside the system here. So we want to make sure we have a collection receptacle under here. Typically, I like to have one pretty close to the reservoir and a second one down below, just in case I miss anything up on the top. Just going to use a small disposable cup for this. Now, at this point, I'll take hold of the hose. If you have a hard time twisting it to get it to break free, you could also just use a hose pick of some sort. Got my angled hose pick. My way around. Being extremely careful not to cause any damage to our coolant hose here. If you even poke one hole, you have to go ahead and replace that whole hose. There we go. Got my collection receptacle. There we are. Just try to collect as much of that as possible. Set that hose aside after a quick inspection. We'll let the reservoir completely drain. Dispose of that coolant properly. Now we can make our way up to the upper hose here. Once again, squeezing the clamp will slide it out of place. Use a hose pick if necessary. Quick inspection of that hose, just like before. Set that hose aside. Continuing from there, we have a vent hose up along the side of the reservoir. We'll pop this out of place using a small prying device. I'm just using a trim tool, but you can use pretty much anything. Quick inspection of that locking clip. We want to make sure that is still reusable. If not, we'll just be using a wire tie to reattach that. This looks fine. Let's make our way on the other side. Just below the hood prop piston here, you're going to find a 10mm headed mounting bolt. Let's remove that. Quick inspection of the mounting hardware, of course. Replace it as necessary. Let's take hold of this, lift it straight up, and remove it from the vehicle. There it is, friend. Okay, friend, it's time to install our brand new coolant reservoir. When we go to install this, there's a couple things that you're going to want to pay attention to. Along the driver's side, where the mounting points are, You have the area for the one 10mm headed mounting bolt, but you're also going to have 2 alignment points. Those need to align with their corresponding areas on the body of the vehicle. We'll take this and slide it down into position and continue on with our 10mm headed mounting bolt. There we are. A light tap, bring it into position. Double check to make sure this is completely secured in place. If it seems like it's off in any way, you need to make sure it's properly secured. After you've done that, let's continue on with our coolant hoses. Now it's time for our coolant hoses. We'll start with the lowest hose, slide it all the way onto the reservoir as far as possible, and hold it in place with the clamp. I've got the hose bottomed out. Looks like it's seated perfectly. Now, when you're installing your coolant clamp, you want to make sure you have it in the original position and confirm that you can see hose on both sides of the clamp. If you can only see hose on one side of the clamp, it's possible the clamp isn't completely seated properly and the hose might come off while you're driving down the road, and that could potentially be catastrophic to your engine. Let's continue on to our next coolant hose. We'll just slide this right on there once again as far as possible, reinstall our clamp. You can see hose on both sides. A quick tug. Now it's time for our vent tube. Let's get this into position. We have our clip that's going to slide down into the coolant reservoir. We're just going to slide that right down and in, once again making sure it's properly secured in place. Now that we have this installed, the next thing we need to do is fill the cooling system. If you were to look along this area of the coolant reservoir, you can see exactly where the coolant level needs to be at. To fill this, carefully open up your cooling system right at the cap here. We'll lift that up, quick inspection. Now we're going to top this off with the manufacturer's specified fluid up to that maximum line. After you've completed that, the next thing you want to do is go ahead and run the vehicle for a short while. Typically, it doesn't have to be for very long to burp out the system because we did not drain all the coolant out of the engine and the radiator. Generally, once you top this off and let it run for a short while, you should be right up to par. If not, top it off and then go ahead and put on your cap. After you've run the vehicle and you're sure the coolant's up to the proper positioning, make sure the cap's in place and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.